Being able to show up on dates and keep going in your dating life requires energy. It requires emotional and mental and physical capacity. And one thing I've learned is that protecting that capacity starts with the basics: sleep, movement, and of course, eating well. When I'm depleted and I don't want to think about food at all, I am not showing up as my best self anywhere, including in my relationship. So I've gotten really intentional about removing the things that drain me. And as much as I love cooking, some days I just need to skip it. That's where Factor comes in. These are fully prepared dietitian designed meals that are ready in 2 minutes. Factor shops, preps, and cooks. I just pop them in the microwave and eat. It's real food, no shortcuts on quality, lean proteins, colorful veggies, healthy fats, and no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils, just the good stuff that your body needs. We recently tried their country herb chicken and potato leek mash that came with corn and zucchini, and this was so good. It's just what I needed after a long day of recording. And I love a meal that's cozy, but also protein forward. And I think a lot of Factor's meals fit the bill. Another one of my favorites is Factor's gochujang salmon with rice and bok choy. This is something I will happily eat every day for the rest of my life. But of course, sometimes it's kind of hard to choose because Factor has over 100 rotating weekly meals, so it never gets repetitive. And if you have specific goals like you want more protein, more fiber, or maybe you're working on strength and recovery, really whatever you're looking to do, there is a collection built for that in Factor. When I am taking care of myself at the basic level, everything gets easier, including showing up as my best self in my relationships. Head to factormeals.com/DI50off and use code DI50off to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with a new subscription only while supplies last until September 27th, 2026. See website for more details. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm sharing no-nonsense advice for navigating dating and relationships with confidence and ease, whether you've been dating for a while or you're just starting out. I believe dating can be fun, and I'm here to help you in the process. I am so excited about today's guest, Rebecca Orr. Rebecca is a relationship coach who I've been following on Instagram forever, and she spent years feeling anxious, insecure, and out of control in her relationships before discovering the work that completely transformed how she shows up in love. She is trained as a coach after having a major breakthrough herself, and now she helps people do the same. Today, you're going to hear Rebecca explain why so many people feel completely fine when they're single, but then fall completely apart the second they start liking someone, and what's actually going on underneath that. I know I've been there. I'm sure you have too. It's like everything's good. I'm fine by myself. And then the second I like someone, I'm a mess. We also get into how to tell the difference between true desire and fear-based desire in early dating, what it means to stop trying to control your partner, and her two-step approach that she teaches her clients when they get triggered. As always, I love to hear from you. So if you have any questions on this episode, any thoughts, any comments, you can DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally, drop a comment on Spotify, or shoot me an email at talia@datingintentionallypod.com. And if you prefer to watch this conversation, all of my episodes are on YouTube, so come hang out with me there as well. All right, let's get to it. Welcome, Rebecca, to the Dating Intentionally podcast. I am so excited to have you here. You're one of my favorite people to follow and chat with on Instagram, and I'm just so excited to get into this conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me, and same to you. Every single one of your posts, I'm like, yes, oh my God, yes. So I love it. Thank you so much for having me on. And I'm really excited for this topic because I know this is something that you talk a lot about and that I talk a lot about on Instagram. And I think it's just something that so many people suffer with. So yeah, I'm about to get into it.
Yes. I mean, I would love to hear a little bit first about your story with anxious attachment. Tell me, when did you discover you were anxiously attached?
Yeah. So I was anxious in relationships all of my life, really, from teenage years all the way throughout my 20s. And of course, as you do, you start to research, you start to try and understand what is going on. Why do I feel so insecure? And other people seem to just not care when people aren't replying or not, sit there crying when their partner is, in a bad mood. So I started to really do the research. Of course, like everyone else, I started to learn what attachment theory was and that I fitted into the category of an anxious attachment style. And yeah, I was going to therapy. I was listening to all the podcasts. I was reading books about anxious attachment, and I was getting really good awareness. And I really understood, like, okay, I had a dad that was hot and cold, and, you know, I had a mum that was a people pleaser that I probably modeled behavior off. And I had these rejections in my past that kind of formed these belief systems. And I could kind of get it. I logically understood it, but I was then kind of stuck with the, okay, now what? Because I get it, but like, how do I change this? Because I don't want to keep feeling this way in relationships. And that was when I actually, one of my favorite podcasters is Cara Lowenthal. Little shout out to her. She does the Unfuck Your Brain podcast, and her podcast is just amazing. And I was listening to that all the way throughout my 20s, but I actually signed up to join her coaching program, and I had the most amazing transformation in how I felt in relationships. So much so that I just decided I need to go and train where she trained. I need to go and I need to learn this, because it was like the tools around thought work and challenging your thoughts and your beliefs. It was actually logical and tangible the way she taught it, and it made so much sense to me. So I went and trained where she trained, and yeah, now I teach really similar work, but specifically on relationships. But yeah, I think for me, how I kind of knew I had an anxious attachment style was relationships just felt so scary. Everything about them. Like, I was in a constant state of, am I about to be rejected? Am I about to be cheated on? Am I about to be fallen out with by, like, a best friend? Am I going to be left? And that was really how I felt throughout all my teens and 20s.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate. I'm sure listeners can relate when relationships feel just terrifying. How did you initially interpret that fear? And what were you doing? Like, looking back, like, what were you doing? Do you think that you're like, oh, I wish I had known not to do this, or that this actually meant something else?
So many things. Yeah. So I thought that the solution was to control everyone around me. And I wasn't like this nasty, controlling, manipulative person. I was crying most of the time. But I was constantly focusing on, okay, how can I make sure my best friend prefers me to any of her other friends? Because my anxious attachment was in friendships as well as romantic. How can I make sure this person that I'm dating doesn't find my best friend hotter than me? How can I make sure that they want to be with me forever? How can I make sure this relationship lasts forever? So I was constantly trying to control how other people felt about me, how they treated me, how fast they would reply to me. And this word is used a lot on Instagram and in different kind of ways that we talk about it, but I was really outsourcing my anxiety, my feelings of anxiety and insecurity. It was like they're being created by everyone else, and therefore safety and calmness is going to be created by them too. So if I can just get them to text me back enough, if I can just get them to, not cheat on me, if I can just get them to be with me forever, if I can get my best friend to call me back fast, like whatever, then I'm going to feel safe and secure. And if there's really one thing I would go back and tell that, mid-20s version of me, it would be, it's not anything to do with them. Like, these feelings are not about them. These feelings are about your relationship to yourself. I basically interpreted everyone's behavior as being a reflection of me. So if they wanted a second date, it was because I was lovable and good enough. And if they ghosted me, it was because I wasn't good enough and there was something wrong with me and I wasn't attractive enough. Or if they broke up with me, it was because I was, unlovable or not interesting enough or cool enough. I really was just basing my entire belief about myself, my self-worth, on how other people responded to me. And then, of course, I was feeling terrified because I couldn't control the way they thought, felt, or responded to me, which made my entire sense of self shaky at all times.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think that the piece that really clicks, I know for me, and I'm sure for other listeners, is when you feel yourself controlling other people or trying to control other people. I always get asked, like, how do I get them to ask me out? How do I get them? It's like, you don't get them to do anything. They're either going to do something or not. And it's like separate. There's some separation there. What did it feel like when you stopped trying to control in your relationships initially? How did that feel?
Yeah. And I think it wasn't so much as like, okay, I can just stop controlling them. And I think this is where some people get stuck. It's like when we say like, oh, how can I just stop caring what other people think? Or how can I just stop trying to control them? We can't really replace one behavior or one urge, one kind of, I'm trying to think of the word, one strategy of the brain. We can't just do nothing in its place. We have to actually replace it with something. So I had to replace trying to control them with coming back to controlling myself. And I don't mean that in a really like I was controlling myself, like I wasn't like, being really hard on myself. I mean, I had to really turn the spotlight from, okay, how do I get them to ask me out? How do I get them to like me? How do I get them to call me back faster? Put the spotlight onto me to, okay, well, what can I control? What am I thinking about whether they, want to date me again or not? What do I make it mean if they do ghost me? What do I make it mean if they don't call me back or text me back? That was what I could control, my thoughts about that thing. So for anyone here that is really trying to control their partner or the person they're dating or, control outcomes of relationships, the first step is accepting that you can't control those things. You can't control other human beings. You can't control uncontrollable outcomes, and come back to what you can control, which is always going to be your thoughts, what you choose to think about any outcome, the way you feel about yourself, and how you are going to show up in the relationship and show up for yourself. And obviously that's a very simple answer to a very bigger, broader piece of work that you have to do. But it's such incredible, important work, because for the first time ever, I actually felt safe, because I was safe, not in, I'm safe because I know they're going to text me back, or I'm safe because I know they're going to want a second date. I was safe because I know I'm going to be okay even if they don't. And that was really the key piece.
Yeah, I think something that I want to highlight, because you're saying you knew you'd be okay, but I also want to highlight that you can know you're going to be okay and also feel very uncomfortable in the uncertainty of dating. Like, it can be both. You don't need certainty to feel okay. And I think that's a huge part of this work as well. I have a burning question. I cannot wait to hear your answer. And that is, why is it that when I'm alone, I'm fine? Like, and I'm kind of speaking for my listeners, like when we're alone, we're fine. But the second we find someone who we think is charming and amazing, and they make us feel so good, and it's so fun to be with them, it just all goes to pieces.
Yes, this is such a big thing.
What does that mean?
Totally. And really, this can come down to a couple of things, really. But the primary thing that I think it comes down to is, and, this can happen to men and women, but just to talk about women for a moment, women in particular are socialized to believe that their worth and value comes from romantic partners. So, their worth and value is determined by, one, are they in a relationship? If they're not, what's wrong with them? I'm thinking Bridget Jones. I'm thinking the way we talk about women being single versus men being single. We say a lot more, there's a lot more of a stigma around women being single. So women in particular really taught, okay, I need that romantic partner to prove that I am lovable and worthy. They're also kind of conditioned to see their worth and value as basically being shown in who desires them. So if this person desires me, that means I do have worth and value. If they desire me, it means I am likable, I am lovable. If they want to choose me, so many women are focused on being chosen. If they choose me, that means I'm worth being chosen. So of course, when they're single, it kind of results in they're single, so they're just going about their life. They don't really have a person who they need to monitor to kind of gauge their enoughness. It's like they don't have another human's thoughts and feelings to constantly be monitoring and checking, like, okay, do they still like me? Are they texting me? Do they want to hang out again? What is this person thinking and feeling about me? When we don't have that, we can feel relatively calm. But then the minute we have that, it's like, oh, okay, now this person's thoughts about me determine my enoughness. If they do want to see me again, it's because I was good enough. And if they don't, it's because I did something wrong and I was bad and, I was boring, or I was, not attractive enough. I said something weird on that date. Like, we suddenly have this whole thing to start freaking out about. And of course, I said it does happen more with women because of socialization and the way women are socialized. It can be the exact same for men. If men base their worth and value on their romantic relationships or what a romantic partner thinks about them, they're going to have the exact same experience. It really is that introduction of this thing that could suddenly take away your worth and value at any moment is what's going to cripple you with anxiety? Does that make sense? I don't know if I explained that very well.
No, it makes total sense. And it's just, it can definitely be a bit of a mind fuck because we feel so secure, confident, like we have it all together when we're alone. And then the second we're in something, it's like, why do I feel like I'm losing all control?
Totally.
And I think it kind of comes back to what you were saying earlier of like learning how to accept that when you're in a relationship, there is this whole other entity that you can't control, whereas other parts of your life, you know, with your career or your social life, and you can't control everything, but there's a lot more that you have control over, except for you can't for this whole other person. And I think that feeling can be very jarring.
Totally. I think as well, if people have a fear of being on their own, or they're kind of putting this pressure on themselves of, okay, I need to be in a relationship by this age, or I need to have this completed by this age, then of course that also heightens the stakes because they meet someone, they maybe go on a few dates, they think, oh my God, this could be the person, you know, they get really excited, which is amazing. And they're like, maybe this is the person I'm going to buy the house with or get married to or have the children with. And they start to build up this hope, which is a good thing. But then it kind of gets kind of dampened by this also fear of the loss of that. But it's not even the fear of the loss of it. It's the fear of what they think losing it would then mean. It's like, okay, if it doesn't work out with this guy, you know, I'm 33 now and I've been, you know, dating around. And so if this guy who really likes me, or this girl who really likes me, if it doesn't work out with them, then that means I'm going to be back at square one. And, you know, I'm not going to hit any of these milestones and I'm not going to be okay. And that is another big recipe for anxiety because we're putting this pressure on. This relationship has to have a specific outcome for me to feel okay. And yeah, this might be a totally other topic that we could talk about or go into, but
sure.
For so many of my clients, they talk about how they're scared to be single or that they're scared to not meet someone because they think that they can't have a fulfilling life while they're single. And so that adds this other pressure of like, I have to go and meet this partner to have this fulfilling life that I've imagined. I don't know if you've probably come across that a lot yourself.
Oh yeah, of course. I have a bunch of episodes that talk about that as well. And it definitely is, the fear has so many layers. There's the fear of not being worthy, not being chosen, and then the fear of not having the fulfilling life or just even not the fear, but it's the experience of not being at a place where you thought you would be at by now, especially if you're in your 30s and beyond. And I have people who are in their early 20s being like, I have never been in a relationship. It's over for me. And it's like, okay, we know it's not, but the feeling is real, but we know it's not actually totally over for you. But I think there's so many different layers to the fear. And in your experience, like with your clients or maybe with your own journey, what does it look like in the beginning of this journey? Like taking the first few steps to work through this where you don't feel out of control the second you get into something.
Totally. Well, I think the first thing that I always advise my clients is to expect their brains to freak out.
I love that.
Yeah, I was coaching someone who had just gotten out of a relationship and she wanted to do all the work so that when she was in her next relationship, she could feel calmer. So we did all the work, but then she actually decided to, you know, bite the bullet and actually start dating. And she kind of was like, oh, fingers crossed, I don't feel anxious. And I was like, no, you're going to feel anxious again. And she's like, but we've done all this work. And I was like, yeah, we've done the work, but you've not actually had an arena to actually correct these patterns within. So you're going to go into dating and your brain's going to want to go back to its default pattern, which right now is terrified, afraid of rejection. This has to work out. They need to like me or I'm not okay. Your brain's going to just go back to that because it's the most familiar. So I always advise people, expect your brain to freak out and don't be surprised by it. Because if you're surprised, that's when you hear the anxious thoughts, you feel the anxiety in your chest and you panic about it, you freak out and it turns the volume of it up even more. But if you can go into dating knowing, okay, my brain is going to want to tell me that this is life or death, that this person not texting me back is a huge disaster, that I can't handle this, that I need them to respond to feel safe. Like if you just expect that, then when it happens, you're already going to be able to respond to it in such a calmer way. You can go from, oh my God, this is like the end of the world to, I see you, brain. Hello, old friend. Yeah. I know this is scary. I know we've been here before. I've got you. And you can be that kind of support to yourself because you're not shocked that this is the experience you're having. So that's kind of the first thing I'd say.
I love that so much.
Yeah, the being surprised that we're humans with thoughts and feelings is like the thing that actually tips us over the edge the most. We've got to just expect it to happen. But yeah, I think then really being able to slow down and do two things. And the first thing is the kind of in the body nervous system regulation. Because when you get triggered in these moments, your brain is thinking that you are in some kind of danger, even though in 99% of cases, there's no life or death risk. We are not in any danger. Your brain is interpreting whatever is happening in this dating scenario as some kind of disaster, threat, something that is harmful to you. And that's why your body is going into that fight or flight. Your body doesn't know, your brain doesn't know that this person rejecting you isn't actually going to kill you. Your brain and body are interpreting it like it's a lion that's about to attack you that it needs to protect you from. So kind of expect your nervous system to be reacting in a way that isn't kind of reasonable or in line with the actual threat of danger. That's to be expected. And we've got to learn how to notice that. And again, like I said, instead of freaking out, just really ground ourselves in our bodies, whatever somatic tool you use. And I teach a ton of them. There's ones you can find in, online or wherever your therapist will be able to teach you some, but finding ways that you can actually regulate in the moment, speaking to yourself softly, telling yourself, okay, I know this seems scary, but we're actually safe right now. My only job is just to take a breath and just notice what I'm feeling and really be able to ground yourself in your body, in your nervous system in those moments. Mm-hmm. So that's one piece of the work. But then the other piece is what I call the thought work, which is actually being like, okay, brain, what is it we're telling ourselves about what all of this means? So like, I've been on 3 dates with this person and they haven't texted me back for 4 days now. Okay, what is it I'm making that mean? And one, is that really true? Is that the only thing that could be true? But two, even if it were true, that this person has maybe decided they don't want to see me anymore, they're ghosting me, then what? What would I make that mean? And it's actually being able to pull out those thoughts and really call bullshit on them. Really be able to say, hang on a minute, why is it I'm telling myself this story about what all of this means? And when you can really get in the habit of doing this more often and not taking every thought and feeling, every anxious thought and feeling you have so seriously, relationships, they're not going to, suddenly be really certain and you're going to know exactly what's going to happen, but you're going to start to trust your own ability to manage the internal, manage what is coming up within you within any of these situations.
Yeah, this is such amazing advice. I love how practical you make it. Like, this is what you can do in the moment, and you're still going to feel this way sometimes. I absolutely love just the idea of expecting it. That reminds me of like even yesterday, I was having like a mini spiral over something. And I went to my husband. I was like, okay, this is the part of the day where I spiral about this. And like, let's just kind of go through it. Like kind of like, I was like, okay, I just like, boo-hoo, I'm spiraling. Okay, I'm done now.
I love that. I love this is the part where I use that with my clients as well. Yeah. Like, yeah, this is the part where I don't get a text back and then my brain wants to freak out. Or even me coming on this show, like before when I was sitting down to log on to meet with you, I was like, started to get that feeling in my chest, that anxiety, that thought of like, what if I don't know what to say? What if I say something stupid? What if she thinks I'm an idiot? Like I had all those thoughts come up because I'm human and, going on someone else's show is a little bit out of my comfort zone. So yeah, it's just kind of normalizing like, yeah, okay, these are just normal human thoughts and feelings to have when you're doing something new. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break and then we have a lot more to get into. I work from home and in California, the weather is actually starting to get nice. So every time it's beautiful and sunny out, I'm kicking myself thinking, why am I not outside sitting in my yard working? And so this spring, I am determined to set up our outdoor space so I can actually work outside, eat outside, and just exist outside. And Way Day at Wayfair could not have come at a better time. It's happening April 25th through the 27th, and it's the best home sale of the year, up to 80% off with free shipping on everything, furniture, decor, outdoor, home improvement, all of it. I've been using Wayfair to slowly make our home feel more like us, and the outdoor space is that last frontier. I want to set up where I can get my laptop out in the morning, have my coffee, and actually enjoy the California weather that I've been completely ignoring. What I love about shopping at Wayfair is how easy it is to narrow things down. You can filter by style, size, price, all of it, so that you're not drowning in options that don't work for you. And I always look for Wayfair verified pieces, which means their team has done a 10-point quality inspection on the item. And when you're buying furniture online, that really helps. Wayday is the sale to shop the best deals in home. We're talking up to 80% off with fast and free shipping on everything. Head to wayfair.com April 25th through the 27th to shop Wayday. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Some green flags I've been thinking a lot about lately are if they text back promptly, if they can actually make a plan, if they really listen, and if they have fresh, crisp sheets and bedding. You know, assuming you make it far enough into dating someone to know their bedding situation. The right sheets, blankets, and comforters can make such a big impact on the quality of your sleep, and I've noticed right away when we upgraded our bed with Boll and Branch. They make everything your bed needs. Their signature cotton sheets, pillows, blankets, and comforters are all designed to be breathable, incredibly soft, and they actually get better over time. We started with their signature sheet set and the waffle blanket, and I will fully admit I am a blanket hog. Johnny has no chance. It is just that cozy. Getting out of bed in the morning was already hard enough, and now it's basically impossible because this bedding from Boll and Branch is just so comfy. What I love about Boll and Branch, other than the quality, is how their bedding gets softer with each wash. I also love that they have so many chic color options. Speaking of green flags, we went with a sage green waffle blanket that brightened up our bedroom and gave it a fresher look. Upgrade your sleep with Boll and Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/dating with code DATING. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/dating, code DATING to unlock 15% off. Exclusions apply. Okay, so Rebecca, what I really am curious about is your current relationship with your wife, right? When you guys started dating, what was happening in your brain? Was it like, oh, I've already done all this work, I'm good? Or did you still have your anxiety come up?
Yeah, so I'd actually done a lot of the work before me and my wife started dating, but we started dating. We were kind of friends first, but we started actually becoming more than friends during lockdown, which, as everyone will remember, was just like a crazy time and just didn't even feel like reality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of the old patterns did kind of raise their head a little bit because obviously it was someone new, it was someone that I was really invested in. But yeah, I think what really was useful for me was I'd already kind of worked on this belief that I could be okay no matter what the outcome was. So although I had moments of, well, what is she thinking about this? Or, what if she doesn't mean that when she says this? Or, what if this happens? I was really able to kind of ground myself in, I can be okay no matter what. This isn't actually the end of the world if this doesn't work out.
Yeah.
One thing I did have to really manage my mind around a lot in my relationship with my wife was just our different communication styles, in the sense of she's like a very dramatic person in the sense that she'll own up to that. She really wears her heart on her sleeve. She shows her emotions a lot. So if she's upset, she's upset. And when she's happy, she's happy. And it's one of my favorite things about her because she's just so bubbly and fun to be around. But boy, when she's upset, do you know it? And for me, like I said before, when, one of the things that always used to trigger me in relationships was I had a dad that was very hot and cold. So, he'd have these big explosive kind of moments of anger. So for me and for my nervous system, when my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, would have like moments of getting upset or angry or frustrated or, annoyed with me, my body would go into that kind of, oh my God, I've done something wrong, I'm a bad person, and go into that real anxiety. So I'd say really with my wife, that was probably one of the biggest things that I had to really work on, was separating out. And again, this is kind of similar to what I was already saying, but really separating out her thoughts, feelings, and responses from my own. To be like, she's feeling annoyed and upset right now. That's created by her brain, and that's okay. She's a human having her human experience. And I'm over here having my own. I'm having my own thoughts, my own feelings. I can choose to feel calm. I can look after me. I don't have to make her being annoyed. It may mean that I did something wrong and I'm a terrible person. Or even if I did do something wrong that I want to think of as wrong, I don't have to make that mean I'm a bad person. I can be a lovable person that made a mistake. So yeah, that for me was one of the biggest things I had to work on, was You know, if she's going to show these emotions and get annoyed and upset sometimes, what am I going to make that mean about me? And can I allow that to be her human experience without, you know, and really create that safety within myself in those moments?
I love that you said that. I think that's so relatable. I can relate as well. And it is so easy to fall into the trap of thinking your partner's moods are about you and your worth and what you bring to the table or whatever. But it really, it's like learning to separate it, I think, is advice everyone needs to hear. Also, not just for romantic relationships, but for other relationships in life as well.
Totally. Yeah. Like I used to literally practice the thought that was like, she's having thoughts and feelings right now, and that's okay. Or like she's having a human experience, and that's okay. She can be mad, and I can be a good person. Yeah, this will pass. That was another thing. I used to think of it like the weather. So it'd be like, okay, she's going to have days when she feels sunny, and she's going to have days when she feels rainy, and that's okay. And it was just this way of like feeling safe within the moods of other people. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. It sounds really silly, but it's not, you know, when we're children and we see our parents angry or upset or, you know, going through these hot and cold moods, as children, we do internalize that to be something about us, that we are bad, we are wrong. So then we grow up as adults that do the same thing. We think that our boss is being in a bad mood is because we're bad, you know, employees, or our partner's being angry is because we're not good enough. Like we do the same thing. So anyone that's listening that can really relate to that, your brain's not broken. It's trying to keep you safe, and there is something you can do about it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, did you ever feel like with your journey with anxious attachment that you were too much?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. I feel like that's
how did that show up?
Yeah, that thought is one that I think so many people have. I think it's that funny thing of I'm too much, but I'm also not enough. So like, I'm not good enough. I'm not fun enough. I'm not interesting enough, but I'm also too much in the sense of I cry too much. I have too many feelings. I want too much attention. I want too much connection. And I think the thing that I always say to my clients about this is too much is not an objective fact. There is no such thing as too much. You know, one person might have the thought that you are too much because you sent them 3 text messages in a row. Someone else, you could send them 20 messages in a row and they'd think it was great. And they would think you're really cute and adorable and they can't wait to read all the messages. You know, too much isn't something you are or that you're not. It's a thought. It's an optional opinion. And I don't think it ever serves any of us to call ourselves too much for being exactly the way we are. That's just never going to serve you. What really helped me instead was really learning to love the scared part of me that wanted that connection, that wanted that love and that, you know, frequent contact, that she wasn't doing anything wrong. She really valued relationships and she wanted to have beautiful relationships. And I could also see where maybe fear was driving her and fear was making her show up in ways that she wasn't proud of, that maybe weren't having positive impacts. And I could really love and care for her too. So I was never going to judge her and tell her she was too much. I was going to understand what it was she needed and help give that to her.
Yeah, I think I would love to invite our listeners to have more conversations with themselves like that and identifying the certain parts of yourself. Like, okay, this part of me wants this. They're not too much. It's totally fine. And I really like what you said about it doesn't define who you are or anything. It's just, it depends on the person. Yeah. You know, you can absolutely find someone who embraces all that you are, the ups and downs, whatever you need. I think what the issue is with early dating is when some people really grasp for more communication, like between dates, or they're really wanting just more attention or more depth even. And that is, I think, what can trigger the feeling of being like, oh, I'm too much, I need too much too soon. Mm. What do you think about how that shows up in early dating, where it's like you just want more of someone?
Yeah. I think this is where, you know, there's discernment to be done between, okay, is this just what I want because this is my preference for how relationships should look? Or is this want coming from fear and anxiety? Because that's actually like an insatiable one. Like, okay, I just want them. I just, you know, want their attention. I want them to be texting me. I want them to be hanging out with me. I just want to spend every minute around them. You don't actually probably want that. Your fear is telling you you need that to feel confident that they still love you or like you, obviously in early dating, and that the relationship is going to work out. So I think my first thing that I'd always say is, if it's coming from fear and anxiety and insecurity, that's not a true desire yet. We can't be confident that that's a true desire. We've got to first work on regulating that fear, understanding that fear. What is it I'm believing the lack of this thing means or proves? What is it that I'm wanting to get this thing so that I can then feel? Because once you feel calmer and safer within yourself, it'll be so much easier to just identify what is a true desire. For me, I used to think I can't feel confident and secure unless that person is texting me back like within a couple of hours. So I did the same thing. I remember with one person, not the person I'm married to, it was someone else. She hadn't replied to me for a couple of hours, but she was out with friends and she posted on her Instagram story, but she hadn't replied to me. And I went ballistic at her. I was so angry at her. And I can literally visualize it now. I'm getting like cringe moments. I remember being in a taxi on the phone to her, really telling her that she didn't care about me. She was so selfish. Like, she was making me feel all these ways. And I was, really mad at her. And, for you, listener, it might not be that you yell at the person when you think they're making you insecure. For me, it was. For you, it might be that you just sit there and cry and think that, you are, asking for too much or whatever it is. But really what I wish I could go back and say to that past version of me is just to slow down and get curious about what it is I'm making all of that mean and what the fear is telling me. Because what was really happening here was I was noticing her post on her story and not reply to me. And I was making that mean that that she didn't care about me, which was one thought, which totally wasn't true. It was just not true at all. Another thought was, if she doesn't care about me, it's because I wasn't good enough. I'm not likable or lovable. There's something wrong with me. So those thoughts were creating the anxiety. And I was trying to solve for those thought errors by getting her to change her behavior, instead of slowing down to be like, wait a minute, why am I making those things mean that? Can I challenge those thoughts? What else could I choose to think about this? And, had I done that, I would have felt calmer, safer, securer. I would have been able to recognize that, oh, she's just, out with friends and they had a moment to take a selfie and posted it. It was not a personal rejection of me at all. She totally can't wait to see me this weekend when we have plans together. She's so loving and caring in so many ways. Like, I would have been able to separate and see that. And then, would I have still needed constant contact and text messages all the time? Would that have been a true desire? Probably not. I mean, I would have still wanted someone that wanted to text me a little bit, but would it have felt so urgent, necessary that it be every few hours, even when they're busy or even when they're with friends? No, totally not. So that's always my advice, is before we can really know what we want, like, can we slow down to really check in with what is the fear telling me?
I love that. And it kind of made me think, they use the word urgency. I think that's a kind of key difference between a desire and a fear-based desire, I guess,
totally,
or something you think is going to make your fear or discomfort go away is the urgency. I think a desire is going to be a little bit quieter, a little bit like, okay, I kind of don't really know where this connection is going because they don't even say anything to me between dates. That's different than like, what are they doing? I need to hear from them. I can't stop thinking about them all day. Like, there's a difference between that. And it's also, by the way, everyone listening, it's reasonable to want connection between dates. We're not saying that that's only based in fear and like anxiety. I think it's just the urgency piece is a clue.
Well, I think the urgency is, say you haven't heard from them in between dates and you're starting to wonder, oh, maybe they're not as into me as I'm into them. Anxiety is, if they're not into me as much as I'm into them, it means I'm not lovable or I'm not good enough. Or, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to have to start from square one and that will be a problem. And, my life is not going the way it's supposed to. That's all anxiety. Security would be, I'm noticing that they're maybe not, responding in the way that I thought they would. Like, okay, that must be about what's going on for them. It's not about my worth or value. I'm lovable and good enough no matter what. Maybe I should have a conversation with them and say, hey, I've noticed this pattern. What's that about for you? Are you just not that big into texting? Is there another way we can keep in touch between the dates? Do you just have a lot going on right now and you can't really commit to this? Like, it can just be a calm conversation to gauge where both people are at, versus this, fear, like you said, of like the fear of the outcome of what may or may not be happening.
Yeah. I love that advice because it really goes along with what we were saying about being too much. For some people, a direct conversation about communication between dates might be too much, and that's not the person for you.
Yeah.
And for some people, be like, I'm really glad you brought this up actually, so we can clear the air and don't have to worry about this.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you responding from that, calm, secure place, and, by the way, no one does this perfectly. I'm not suggesting you're going to be a robot,
no.
But if you really coming to it from a place that feels authentic and good to you, and you are just calmly saying, hey, this is what I'm noticing. This is what I would really like. What are your thoughts on this? If their response is to shut you down or be defensive or tell you that you want too much or you're crazy or you're too intense, again, that's about their brain. That's about their perception of the world and dating. And your job is to ask yourself, well, does their perception of the world and dating really align with the kind of partner I want to have? And in that case, the answer is probably no.
100%. So I'm really curious also, did you talk about anxious attachment and everything with your wife when you were dating?
Yes, definitely. And
okay.
Yeah, I think...
When did it come up?
It probably came up within, you know what, it was because we were friends first. We'd already kind of talked about it. And this is actually quite funny because my wife also has an anxious attachment. So she'd probably kill me for sharing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Before I even met her, I'd known about her through a friend of mine. That's how we met, like a mutual friend. And so I had been told from my best friend about her crazy friend who was like this psycho, like really anxious in relationships. And that was my now wife. So I think what was nice is that we'd both been that psycho too much person, or believed ourselves to be, in relationships. So when we kind of met and were friends, it was kind of this sharing of like, we're both really anxious and we were both dating other people and we were both, whatever. So I think that was useful for us because we'd already started on this point of like, we know how each other's brains work and that we both might have anxiety about certain things, and that's okay. But yeah, I'm thinking what would be more useful for me to share, because that's kind of a unique situation. When I was with my partner before that, she definitely was leaning more avoidant and I obviously was more anxious. And I think I didn't handle conversations with her about it well at all because, again, I was very just trying to control her to feel better. But I think if you are someone that knows you have a bit of an anxious attachment and you are dating and you're wanting to navigate these situations in the most useful way, when it feels right to have those deeper conversations, when it just kind of comes up naturally about your dating history, your experiences, sharing a little bit about the inner work that you've been doing, the fears, the kind of ways that you do feel, anxious sometimes, can be really vulnerable and will be really vulnerable. But as we were saying before, the right person, and not that there's one right person, but a person that is a good fit for you will want to know everything about that. They'll want to understand it. They'll want to understand what triggers you. They'll want to understand what scares you and how they can best support you. And that doesn't mean that that's suddenly then their responsibility and that you hand the baton for your anxiety over to them to take care of. No. I'm all about owning our own fears and insecurities. But you want someone that cares about you enough to be on the journey with you. And they're going to have their own stuff and they're going to be insecure as well, or, they might have avoidant tendencies or whatever it is. They're not going to be perfect. But I think, if you can really test the waters with having these conversations and seeing how people respond, that gives you a lot of information about their character. And if they are, mocking or dismissive or unkind about those kinds of things, again, it comes back to, well, is that the kind of person you want to date?
I love that advice. And I think it can be so scary to have these conversations because it is very vulnerable and revealing. When do you think it's good to start talking about this stuff?
I think that really depends on the individual and the context of that situation. I'd never want to give like, oh, by date 5, you should have this conversation.
No, of course.
I think, when it feels kind of, I would never advise anyone, go to someone and say, hey, just, I've got an anxious attachment style and I expect you to do X, Y, and Z. I'm never about controlling anyone else anyway. But I think once you've reached a level where you are maybe sharing more personal things about the way you think, the way you feel, I think, sharing what's been true for you and what your experience has been, I don't think there's really ever a wrong time for that when it's coming from a place of genuinely just trying to connect with the person. If you're sharing it because you're like, I need to tell them I've got an anxious attachment style so that they never do anything that triggers me. Okay, that's never going to be the right time to do that because that's you trying to control them, like we said. But if it's just you genuinely trying to connect with someone and be like, this is me, I want to get to know you, like, let's get to know each other, I don't think there's ever really a wrong time for that. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great framework for deciding when to bring it up. It's like when it's authentically in connection, like it's kind of an organic. I think And that could be early on. It could be a little bit later. I agree. Doesn't belong on your dating profile. Don't put that. No. It doesn't belong before you meet someone.
I mean, it depends who you want to attract. if you put, I've got an anxious attachment on my profile, you might, I don't know, maybe some therapists will get in touch with you to pitch you.
I don't, yeah, no. I can't imagine anyone being like, that's, look, there's nothing wrong with you, but it's like that. We don't need to lead with this.
Yeah.
On a dating profile. I agree.
Everyone has baggage, don't they? Everyone has baggage, and you don't have to kind of, I think labeling yourself as well, like you don't want to introduce yourself as that label. You are more than just someone that sometimes feels anxious.
It doesn't define you.
You
100%.
You're a fun person. You're a confident person. Lead with those things as well.
Yes. I think that when you have built up some trust with them would be a better time to share. And that doesn't happen after 3 dates. I think it happens after maybe at least a month of dating consistently, maybe 6 to 8 weeks of dating consistently. That's when you can really start to see if trust is there. From what I've seen, you need to see how they behave and are they consistent. You can test the waters of how they're going to handle things by, again, like what you said, sharing generally about your values, how you think, how you see the world. I wouldn't just dive in with like, so what's your attachment style?
No.
Like as a vetting question. I talked about this with my now husband it was technically our 5th date. We were kind of long distance at first, meaning he and I didn't meet initially once we connected. We had a month of like talking, getting to know each other before that because we weren't in the same place. So on our 5th in-person date, we had already been dating for like 6 weeks at that point. And I think he already had declared that he's like, I want to be in a relationship with you, which I thought was great. But then I was kind of like, okay, I kind of need to have these conversations with him. So I started talking more about like, do you know what attachment styles are? Like, do you know what this is? And he ended up reading one of the books about attachment. So that's how we started talking about it. And he did not know what it was.
Yeah, a lot of people won't know what it is. And yeah, I think what's important as well is that whenever you decide to say something or talk about it or talk about your own struggles, that self-trust piece is important as well. We don't know how they're going to respond. We don't know that they won't take what you've said and think negatively of you or, do things that trigger you intentionally because they know that's going to get a rise out of you. That's happened to clients of mine and they've always, started to beat themselves up for being vulnerable. And I think, no, don't beat yourself up for being vulnerable.
No.
That was a beautiful thing you did. You shared something that was true for you. If they choose to respond in a negative way to that, that's on them and that's just data and information for you. So it's that self-trust piece of I'm going to be vulnerable and honest. And if someone rejects me for that, then that's just information. I will be kind and caring to myself and loving to myself no matter what.
100%. And I think that the people out there who understand that your attachment style doesn't define you, that attachment styles can be shifted and supported in a healthy way to like for each other. It's not just about one person. It's not about fixing each other. It's like, how can we support each other and our individual healing in a relationship? So the people who understand that are going to be the ones who you want to get into a relationship with anyway.
Yeah. I think as well, some things will just come up naturally. If you are trying to manage your mind and be calmer in relationships and then something happens and you have a big reaction to it and you get really triggered, and they're like, whoa, what was that about? That's as good a moment as any to be like, okay, I'm sorry for the way I reacted then. It was because I was thinking this and I was feeling this and this is something I'm working on. And, I hope you can be patient with me. And again, their response might be, no, I can't be patient. You've ruined it and leave. And if so, okay, there's information that they weren't the person to support you on your journey with this. And if they can then be like, oh, I'm glad you shared that. And, let's talk about it. That's a good sign.
Okay, so I want to take a quick break and then we're going to get into our dating dilemma. Okay, are you ready for our dating dilemma?
Yes, fire away.
All right, I'm going to read it and we will share our thoughts. I, 36 female, went on a first date with a 36-year-old guy and I'm feeling slightly confused. I really tried to be in the moment and have just a get to know you first date, but this first date turned into a 5-hour climbing session, which was fun, but I was mentally and physically drained after it. He asked if I wanted to go out again, and I said yes, and we left it at that. He messaged me that evening after the date just to thank you. I had a good time. I didn't see the message until the next morning, and I responded and reiterated my interest in another date and shared my number. It's been 2 days and no message or word. This feels so confusing. And at this point, if he does message me, I'm not really interested in meeting up. I have quite a few friends who tell me I'm in the wrong and need to give him time, but I feel like this isn't interest, it's just a game. For context, I initiated the first message, and after 2 weeks of messaging, I initiated the date. So this feels like I'm left holding the bag. I appreciate your insight and thanks for the grounded dating perspective you give. Okay, so just to recap, they had one date. It was a long rock climbing or bouldering activity date. She felt physically drained. He messaged her, I guess he messaged her after, but she didn't see it till the next day. And then it's been a few days and he has not reached out. What do you make of this? Because this is so interesting. It's like, this is one reason I don't think people should have long first dates. They are mentally taxing. To spend 5 hours with a total stranger, not a good first date idea. But if I was in her shoes, I would just leave it personally. But what do you think?
Well, I feel like there's kind of two parts of because there's kind of her thoughts about the type of date activity they did, which I definitely think she should maybe express her desire for wanting to do something different next time. That sounds like she's realized that wasn't a good experience for her. But it sounds like he's not replied for 2 days. So if I just focus on that, I think what I always get my clients to do is first focus on separating out the facts from the stories. So the facts are, he said he had a great time. She said, me too, whatever, really want to see you again. And it's been 2 days. We want to just separate that out from the thoughts. So the thoughts might be, he's not interested, he's messing me about, he's playing games. Now, we don't actually know if any of those things are true. We don't know that something serious hasn't happened in his life after sending that message. We don't know that he got really sick. We don't know that he just really isn't that big into texting and he's planning on, calling in a day. We don't know that maybe he is playing games or maybe he isn't that invested or wanting to find something serious. We actually have no idea. So I would almost say at this point that she kind of needs to be embracing the idea that I have no idea. My brain has no idea what's going on for him, and that's okay. I'm not supposed to know right now. I'm not supposed to know whether he wants to see me again. I'm not supposed to know whether he's taking this seriously or not, because we're not psychic. We can't actually read people's minds. So my advice would be to challenge those assumptions and kind of recognize we don't actually know what he's thinking, and kind of see what he does then reply. If he does reply and he's really interested and keen, does she want to go again? Maybe she does want to go and suggest a better date and give it another try. I think sometimes that kind of desire to call it or like instantly get out or say no or, kind of no is again, we're trying to protect ourselves from rejection. Like, oh, I don't want to go on another date in case then he is, not committing or he is being a bit hot and cold or he isn't communicating the way I like. I don't want to do that because then I'm going to make it mean something bad about me and feel rejected. So I'm just going to call it, I'm just going to cut it short so that I never have to go through that. I mean, if she generally didn't feel any connection with this guy and doesn't have any interest in seeing him again, then there's her answer. But if she kind of did and she was kind of like, oh, I kind of like this guy. Maybe we could, I kind of do want to get to know him. My thoughts would be that we don't really have enough information yet to know whether he wants the same things as her or there could be something there. So yeah, we want to separate out facts from stories, kind of accept that we don't really know yet. And again, come back to that self-trust of, okay, what can I control in this situation? I can't control when he messages, but what do I want to think about myself regardless? Who do I want to be and how do I show up? And that might include, I'm going to be direct. If he messages me in a week and says, doesn't mention the date, I'm going to be direct and say, hey, I'm really looking for something a little bit more serious. If you don't have the capacity to kind of meet up more regularly, it's totally cool. We're just not on the same page. That might be what she decides she wants to do. Those are my thoughts initially on that.
I love that approach. Yeah, I love that approach of just separating the stories from the facts. I agree. I'm always focused on the facts. We don't know what's going on, but we do know that he said he had a great time. He messaged after the date. I don't think it really matters that she took a whole 12 hours at least to respond. I don't like when people count the hours between texts. It's getting way too granular and way too hyper fixated on the timing of it. She did the right thing. She showed interest because she's interested by responding to his message. It's really that simple. Totally. And she left her number, which is hey, we had our first date. I want to see you again. Here's my number. Text me so we can get off the app and plan another date. So she threw the ball in his court and he's not throwing it back. To me, that's just information of you don't have to make a decision about what to do now, kind of like what you were saying. Just leave it, move on to other connections.
Yeah. And let's see what happens. You might ring and say, oh my God, after I saw you, I got the worst sickness bug. I've been in A&E. Like, can I take you out next Tuesday? And it'd be like, oh, cool.
We have no idea. You don't need to make a decision, like, just to make yourself feel better. You have to be like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to put a pin in that and move on to other connections and not really worry about this one right now and just see what happens. Maybe he'll never respond, but you have other connections going anyway. So that's okay. Totally. Even if he didn't, it's okay. But I think it's like, that was my approach, at least, of like, I have other people I'm talking to. I don't need this one to work out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm with you. I love your advice. I think that's really a practical way of being in the moment, especially when you feel like you want to make a decision so that you can just put it to bed, close the tab in your brain and move on.
We just want certainty. We're like, I want to know whether this is going to work. I'm getting the hint that it might not. So rather than be in I actually don't know, I'm going to just decide that it's not, because that feels more comfortable to the brain. And I think sometimes being in the discomfort of like, I actually don't know is where we need to be.
100%. Rebecca, I know you have to go, so I will let you go. I know this conversation has been amazing. I could talk to you forever about this. You're so thoughtful in your answers. I just really appreciate all the wisdom you've shared with us today. Where can we find you?
You can find me at Rebecca Orr Coaching on Instagram. So that's Rebecca and then ORE Coaching. Very weird last name. And you can also find me at RebeccaOrCoaching.com. Oh, and I have my own podcast, which is Master Your Relationship Mind Drama. So yeah, come in and check me out there. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I have loved this. I love chatting with you. And yeah, I'm sorry I have to dash, or I would have stayed on and talked to you all night. But yeah, it's been really good. And I hope that our conversation has helped someone. And if nothing else, helped people feel less alone in this.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So what did you think? What was your biggest takeaway? Drop a comment below if you're on Spotify. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. Just let me know your thoughts. I love hearing from you. I loved Rebecca's reframe that too much is not an objective fact. There is no universal standard for being too much, and it depends entirely on who you're with. One person might think like 3 texts in a row is just so much, and the other person might think it's adorable. That reminder just takes a lot of shame out of showing up authentically, I think. And I also really resonated with her advice on expecting your brain to freak out. That makes so much sense. When you go into dating knowing that your brain is going to freak out, that it's going to try to convince you that, not getting a text is life or death, you're already one step ahead. You're kind of ahead of it, and you can greet the anxiety like an old friend instead of being blindsided by it. And I love that. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for trusting me. Don't forget, you're doing great. And if you know someone who is navigating dating and could use a confidence boost or fresh perspective, share this episode with them. And if this podcast has helped you, a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify goes a long way. Once again, I'm Talia. This is Dating Intentionally, and I'll see you next time.